All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Double S Club. I am one of your hosts, Lord 905 on Facebook and all the other platforms. You know what it is. And my co host for this afternoon is Mr. Remarkable.
It's remarkable or rizinx on various platforms, Instagram, Facebook. Am I
Nice.
on? No, I'm not on Snap. So
I mean, I'm on Snap, but it's like I barely ever use it. Do you even
I'm
use
on
that
Snap,
damn
but I'm
thing?
not on Snap. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So basically, I figured we'll have a real short discussion today on our beginning point. I think things are getting a little bit out of hand, and I think it's counterpoint, good point, bad point on this one. Where I'll take the bad point, let's just say, and I think we should discuss on the fact of the COVID restrictions, based on the fact that people right now, if you're not getting a vaccine, you can't go back to work, you can't do anything, recent from recent argument, I've just seen that certain NBA players they want them traded if they don't get the vaccine or fired. So it's starting to get pretty dicey out here. What do you think about this?
I mean, the room for personal opinion is gone, right? So, you know, everyone's sitting here and saying that they're being violated, and everyone's having an opinion on why they shouldn't get it. And, that's all fine and dandy, especially when, you know, um, there's a choice. But when you go back over the history, there's a lot of times where people have been inoculated for the sake of doing it, right? I think it's just because it's been happening on such a mass scale and everyone's
Hmm.
privy to having to get shots, and then like the impacts of it feels a little bit more intrusive, right? Because before it was a choice. Like, you enter a certain country, you have to have certain shots. You um are being put through a lot. Like, I remember as far back as grade school, if you didn't have certain shots, you were going to be expelled, right? So I
Hmm.
find it interesting that in this day and age where it's just like we're aware of what we're dealing with on a global scale, and everyone's sitting here and having a separate opinion, saying, why am I being violated? Like, that's my initial opinion. I could definitely dive in,
Hmm.
but I'm just surprised that people are surprised.
I mean, you got to look at it this way. People have been going by the rules, going by. Well, I just look at it from like my perspective. You have a group of people who listen to every mass protocol, who stayed themselves inside. They've done everything else they were supposed to do, and then now it's just another step. It's adding to and then now it's a fourth step because at least like for me, I've been at work. Other than the fact that I just got my injury about 4 months, 4 or 5 months ago, I've not been home. So I've been restricted to now staying home and not really going too much out. But before that, I was working practically every single day and having to deal with every restriction there was. Being an essential worker, I had no choice but to be at work every single day with no vaccine, no nothing, running, dealing with the protocols, never once getting it because I'm following every single protocol to the T. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't hanging out with my virgins. I wasn't going nowhere, being home every day, me and my wife. Like literally, we haven't been eating to a restaurant in almost like a year and a half
Mhm.
because of that. So it's like, for me, the whole idea of things getting back to normal or a shot, like, bro, we're used to normal then. Like, let's get it out of the way. The problem is that you have a bunch of foolhardy people on both sides. I think when you got a group of people who get the shot, think everything's good, and just go back to normal, and life isn't normal, and then they're spreading. And then you have the people who don't have the shot, who are living life like it's normal, and they're spreading it as well. And until those two group of people address the fact that there's a problem out there, we're still going to be spreading it. We haven't addressed that issue. And that's where I
Okay,
think the problem lies.
so you're leaving the resolution on a bunch of people that are being irresponsible.
No, but I'm saying that that's the issue is that we have a giant group of people who are
So,
irresponsible.
so again, you're
But the
leaving
shot doesn't fix that. But the shot
the
doesn't fix
shot.
that.
The shot's not designed to fix it. I don't understand why everybody thinks that the shot's designed to fix all the problems. The shot is to regulate, so we can at least say that in most cases,
Mhm.
everyone who can be subjected to the COVID virus has less of a chance of extreme illness or death. That's it. right? So everyone's sitting here saying the shot's going to fix, it's going to change behavior, it's going to do this. No. So what you're saying has validity because you're saying as you follow the rules and the mandates throughout the pandemic as an essential service, if we're it's impossible for us to break down the numbers, right?
Understandable. I'm not trying to play tit for tat on that one, right?
No, but in all honesty, so like you followed the rules, right? And you didn't get COVID. I followed the rules, I got COVID. And it was only because of the situation during that period where I had to take my car to a mechanic. My mechanic was following all the protocols, social distancing, regiments, all that sort of stuff. Everybody was feeling it. But one person entered the environment that didn't.
Yeah.
And as a result,
person as usual. Yeah.
Right. So as a result, not only did I get COVID, impact my family.
Everybody probably, yeah.
Exactly. He got COVID. His family got COVID. He had to shut down his business for 5 days. He had to go through an extensive cleaning process. He had to call back all of his clients just because of an action. So if you look at it on the grand scheme of stuff, right, we can sit here and point fingers and say, you're doing this, you're the reason, or whatever. But at the end of the day, we've gone through various steps of saying, let's shut down the country, let's wear masks, let's social distance, let's do it. Well, we didn't do it.
We played like we did.
Okay, we didn't do it as aggressively as we're trying to do right now. So put into context, we could have, right? So everyone who's sitting here and saying my rights are being violated right now, okay, let's get into your time machine, your DeLorean, your TARDIS, and go back 2 years and say, Trudeau, government officials, shut down the country. I don't care. I don't care if it's we can't go somewhere, they can't come in. Surrender your passport and say we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to come in because think about it.
Yeah, no.
You have the islands. You have the islands in Canada.
Look what happened in Jamaica.
Newfoundland. Hold on. Time out. I'm not talking about the Caribbean. I'm talking about in Canada.
Yeah. Newfoundland and all the other places.
Exactly. As a country as a whole, right? We have isolated areas. Newfoundland, PEI, all that sort of stuff. Their numbers are minuscule, right? Even if you sit there and you create like the medical curtain of Quebec, tell me how Quebec and Ontario had such astronomical numbers, and then you go east and everything's quiet because they were able to isolate and cut off their ability to shut off and remove themselves from the country, allowed them to go throughout an entire period without it. But even at their best, their network, supply chain, and social connections got strained so much that people creeped in. There's the one story about that guy who went for a wedding. So instead of him
multiple stories of that, yeah.
Well, I'm just using an example. Instead of him saying, you know what, I understand, it would be nice there, let me Skype. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, we can, multi-million-dollar deals can be closed on a Zoom call. Yet people feel socially obligated to go somewhere in a physical capacity. So where does the responsibility lie in someone saying, well, I'm doing what I need to do, but I can get carte blanche because of the situation. And as a result, the rope has gotten tight to the point where we're choking ourselves. We've gone to a point where we don't have that luxury of saying, we'll do it at your discretion. Right? So now we're creating scenarios where people are like, okay, we're being inconvenienced. Before, when they said, oh, it's just going to be social stuff. You won't be able to go to the movies. You won't be able to go to the gym, all that sort of stuff. Everybody's like, okay, whatever. He's stuffed up. And the numbers still went up. So it's coming to a situation.
But let's be honest. I'm only going to countermand it. It's because all right, I'll use your scenario of the Quebec and the Toronto situation. Yeah. Those are the epicenters of the most irresponsible people in Canada. You're just naming the two groups of people who are the most rebellious nature out of all of Canada. Literally, that's why.
Right now, Alberta's sitting there and saying that they need help from Ontario to take some of their sick people because they have too many. So you have 1% of our population. Our population dwarfs Alberta, right? Yet we're pushing hard for the vaccine mandates. Meanwhile, Alberta sit there and said, you know what, survival of the fittest. And within a month, they're turning around and saying, okay, the numbers are too extreme to the point where we need help. So
No,
you're actually
I see your
seeing
point.
the free range. So
Mhm.
it's a perfect reflection of the fact that we don't have the capacity to say, you know what? If you choose to get the vaccine, that's your choice. If you choose not to, that's your choice. Let's get together anyways. They did that in Alberta, and now the
Mhm.
numbers are ridiculous, right? Meanwhile, in Ontario, we haven't gone full fledged. Let's interact with everybody while people are still getting vaccinated. Yes, there's people who are getting sick with COVID because we're like the virus is not choosing who to go after. It's not saying, oh, you got vaccinated. Okay, I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm gonna
Mhm.
allow you, right? It's still gonna infect you, which the scientists are saying. You still stand a chance of getting COVID even after you're double vaccinated. What you're doing is mitigating the risk for you to be extremely sick,
Mhm.
hospitalized, or dead. You
But
can't say that for an unvaccinated person. So while you're still willing to say, I'm going to exercise my right as a non vaccinated person
mhm.
and remove myself from the needs of society, socially, to a certain degree, economically, all that sort of stuff, unless deemed necessary. There's still
Mhm.
people who are going out there either because they're relying on the vaccinated to
Mhm.
mitigate their chances of getting sick, or they're
Mhm.
just taking caution to the wind because they're under the impression that they are immune or they
Everything is good.
survived this long,
Mhm.
so they'll be fine, right? So the virus still circulates in that pool of people, and we run the risk of maybe the virus getting a little bit stronger, smarter,
Hey,
faster.
it's already done that.
How like there's 26 letters in the alphabet and we're only at
Mhm.
delta. Delta is 4. So
You
you're
feel
telling
me?
me you're going to allow it to manifest into the point where it becomes the zeta
The
virus?
Zula virus? No, I feel like what you. I'm hearing you.
So at the end of the day, yeah, I get it. It's a violation. I get it. It's stringent. But even in the prefaces, like the only successful person I've seen who's been able to push back against their employer and say, you know what, I should not have to get the virus is the law professor at Queens, where
Mhm.
he validated that because he got COVID, his
Mhm.
body has
He
already
has
been introduced
his immune response.
and
I've
as
seen the argument of that.
natural immune response. Okay,
Mhm.
that makes sense, right? But because of the fact that we're too busy dealing with the amount of people who are like, oh, I want to get back to normal. This
Mhm.
sucks. Da 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 da. The economic strains, because every country is losing money right now,
Obvious.
right? Supply chains are being impacted. People are sitting here and saying, oh, I'm not too worried about it.
Mhm.
People look up the term shrinkflation. Go to the grocery store, be actually conscious, and see how
Very
much it's
mindful, and you'll see
costing
how
you,
much everything. Yeah.
how much your bill's costing. With your bill going up, cost of fuel going up because there's less people to refine, there's not that many people driving around because we can't go wherever we need to do, right?
Mhm.
So the value of it versus volume is being affected so they can maintain their bottom line. And the simple fact that like you go and you see a box of Cheerios back in the day, it was 926 grams. Where the hell
Mhm.
did this 700 come from?
Oh, I already seen an actual study of this where what they did was
It's called
the supply chains realized that they did not have to actually supply as much cereal or products as much as the consumer was seeing. What they actually did was keep the box size the same way. They shrinked it, I think it's a third of an inch on either side, and
it
most
it's
people never noticed.
it's
Like they
called
never noticed.
it's called shrinkflation. That's what
Yeah.
it is. So you're right, but it's an effort for them to justify not raising the price. So if a box of cereal is $5, hypothetically speaking,
Yeah.
right? They can't go around and say, okay, it's going to cost six something,
Six
right?
seventy
Because
five or whatever it is. Yeah. Because you're
no, no,
used to
no.
paying that same amount.
Right. So the box gets smaller. So
Mhm.
idealistically, the company still has the ability to sit here and say, when everything gets back to normal, if they choose so, is
Mhm.
to increase the size of the boxes
But
and
they're
then
not.
slightly increase the price to say, hey, you're getting more value for the dollar, but
Mhm.
you've gotten so used to seeing 700 that if it bumps up to eight something, it
Mhm.
still makes sense, right? So in a short long term, they're still going to get profit out of it. But
Oh, they're
it's
definitely going to make profit.
it, at the end of the day, it's a waste of energy for a lot of these people, these especially the anti-protesters and stuff like that, saying my
Oh,
rights are
bro.
being violated,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
You're right.
here's the thing. I'm on both. I'm on the sitting side of the fence. Whereas I'm okay with understanding that my rights as a human being are gonna just get held up while this whole thing's going on. Like me and you have discussed this a million times. I'm okay
Mhm.
with sitting my ass at home and waiting this whole thing out. Why? Because I understand that if I want to go back to who I am as a person, like be able to perform and go all over the place, I cannot interact because I run the risk of fucking everything up. Pardon my language. So I've stuck to the rules. Now, here's my only pushback of it. The only pushback I have for this whole entire thing is I don't know if they truly know the science of what they've done. They fast-tracked this so quickly that we literally don't have enough medical understanding of how this is going to affect the body long term. That's my only problem. That's the only reason why I have a pushback. I would want to wait just to see what's going to happen in a year, bro. Like, that's my only understanding.
Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of doing that. A lot of people are sitting here and saying, hey, you know what? I have a right to kind of worry about my future, stuff like that. Nobody's been complaining over evolution. The fact that in less than 50 years, 100 years, let's do 100 years. Let's do 100 years. Our life expectancy has doubled and nobody complains.
Almost tripled in some cases.
If you go back 100 years,
mans were dying off at 20. I fully agree.
Right. So with all the medical science and all the food processing, all that sort of stuff, nobody had a problem with it. Then you factor in a lot of people are sitting here and like rights agree. Okay, back in the day when cigarette smokes, secondhand smokes, look how long it took to get that out of mentality. When people are sitting here and complaining about cell phones and radiation, microwave radiation, TV radiation, nuclear power plants. Everybody's sitting here, carbon, like we're sitting here and saying, oh, you know what, like countries are switching gears and getting rid of a carbon combustion engine and pushing for EVs. So we've gone through a lot of phases where as a whole, we've been fucking ourselves up. So if we're in a situation where it is a clear problem, the problem is the world is not working the way it used to be, right? Economically, financially, socially, emotionally, it's not right. So everyone's sitting here.
I agree with you on both points. You see, the thing is, for me, all right, I'm only using myself into the I don't belong to the anti-protester. I don't belong to any of those camps. I'm just a guy in the corner who is waiting as long as I can not to have to get to the vaccine because I want to know as much as I can about it. That's really where I stand. And the reason why I stand like that is because I don't even take Tylenol, dog. You know me. Like, I literally turn everything to me is ganja, bro. I don't use no medical. Like, even when I went through my surgery, I still have them painkiller pills from me getting cut open. I didn't use any of them. Like, how I am.
Yeah, but
so it's like, for me, the shot is like the last step. You see what I'm saying?
Right, but you're referring to things on an individual basis, and the fact of the matter is that your genetic makeup, including your history, your biology, and your experiences, may vary, and as a result, you might be fortunate enough to you could have the virus right now. You could be patient zero, exactly,
and have no idea because I have a good immune system and yada yada yada. No, I understand all of that. My problem, because I've been tested, we get tested all the time just for that, just to let everybody know. But the reason why I'm kind of offset about this is because, like, literally, I had a flu shot, let's say 7 years ago, and every time drugs get into my system, it changes me. Something happens, and I do not like the effect. Perfect example: I took a flu shot once, and I've never, and I repeat, never recovered from it. Like, my body feels off to this day. Like, literally, I get sick now. Before that, I never used to get sick, bro. Like, I get odd little head colds now and headaches. It's not anything super major, so it's like a huge problem. But before that, I never got any of that stuff. Like, shit, we've known each other for years, and you've never seen me be down for more than 24 hours on anything. It's just my body makeup. You know what I mean? And then anytime I introduce something to my system, it has an adverse reaction. So that's, for me, why I'm very cautious about it. Not to mention my kidneys are having problems, so they're not necessarily storing, and not to mention, like, adversing proteins very well. So I don't want to change anything. That's what I'm worried about. Like, I have medical reasons to be worried. So that's my real problem why I don't want to get the vaccination, especially because I don't know how it's going to affect my physiology. I could be perfectly fine, as you said. I could be patient zero, walking around with Delta in me and not know it. So I'm not gonna be here and scream anti-masker. I'm not screaming anti-science. I'm not on both sides. I'm just a person who's sitting in the background worried and I don't know what to do.
Okay. Well, in all fairness, if everybody wants to play the numbers game just so we can support facts,
Yes,
so
because that's
yeah.
usually where they need it, right? They need the hard lesson in facts first.
Okay. So let's just say,
Because I know you're just looking up some numbers right now to get some hardcore super evidence.
yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, let's
Why not?
do it. Let's dive deep, right? Because I mean, here's the problem I have with let's have another discussion while you're looking this up. Like, I have a problem with the anti-maskers. You want to know why I have a problem? Because they're walking into people like myself and you who owns businesses and trying to bully them into a bunch of rules they know they can't follow. And I have a huge problem with that. That is my issue. Like, that's why I'm not with anybody on any side, because they're both acting stupid. The government is giving out bad information on some cases, and they're not willing to say, we don't know. They're just not willing to say, hey, bro, we don't know how long this is going to last. This might be screwed up. We're just doing our best here. Like, that would be cool if they just said that, but they're not. They're libeling a lot of this stuff as a straight fact. And then you have the other group of people who see through that, but they're stupid enough to go out and then protest and push their opinions on somebody else who obviously does not deserve that. And I have an issue with that. Real wholeheartedly, I have a real issue with that.
Okay.
Like, what do we do about these idiots? Like let's not name names, but there's one a perfect example of there's a Canadian out there roaming around in a muscle t-shirt trying to bully restaurants and gyms and anywhere he can walk into this philosophy. We just sent 150 people into a gym the other day. Like what is the recourse for him? Because what if one of the places he sent turns into an epicenter? Does he take the responsibility? Is there legislation to make sure he is responsible for that? What do we do about this kind of crap? Because guys like him are making the situation worse. Because they're going to introduce legislation to deal with him, which is going to restrict to the rest of us directly. And that's what I have an issue with. A lot of this stuff is like people aren't willing to take the responsibility on both sides. It's foolish. Like, you storm people's places of work and you act up out in the public. You think they're just not going to take notice of that? Now they're going to restrict the rest of the people who are sitting at home trying to do the best thing possible. Every week I watch television, another group of people fucking up my chance to go back outside.
Right. So, it's definitely the resistance of people trying to get towards a solution. All these people are saying, you know what, you're a sheep, you're not following us. It's like, first of all, speak to your elected officials. Don't go after businesses. They've been struggling over the last year and a half, trying to make sure things ends meet. That's like somebody coming into your workplace, your police business, like in your factory or your safe office building and saying, you know what, like, you should be wearing a mask, or even your home. If you're lucky enough to work from home, and then kicking down your door and saying you should be wearing a mask.
Why aren't you wearing a mask in your house?
Right? I'm doing business with you. You should be wearing a mask. I don't feel comfortable doing around with you, even if there's a computer screen in between us. So you're being very facetious and you're being very inappropriate. If you're not happy about this, then come with actual facts and let's have a discussion on what the better course of action is. Again, all the government officials are reacting and trying to create these things like no one's happy with it. Right? I'm fully vaccinated. I'm not happy with having to get it. But at the end of the day, I want to reach a threshold where we are safe and confident to interact with each other. And all these things that we're hearing about, people of influence, doctors, nurses, professional athletes being obligated or required to get vaccinated. Again, your actions influence other people. So you're in a position of saying that circa in 2019, you were valuable for certain things, either your intellectual, physical, social prowess. But now you're in a situation saying, I can't take a stand because it infringes on my personal well-being way too much to say, you know what, at the end of the day, it's for the greater good. If we can accelerate the process of getting back to some degree of normalcy, then we should try and at least recognize that. It's like I hate doing this, but it's like in the context of going to war, right?
Mm.
If we had an enemy, let's say,
Whoever.
some
No, I fuck with you. Whoever.
fictitious
Yeah.
country, fictitious country
Fictitious country
A,
number one. Yeah.
right? We're going to war, and we have an option to sit here and say, if we send 500,000 people to fight the battle, and with strategy and patience, this war will be over in 7 years. Or we can send 200,000 people
Mm.
and get the war done in 3 months. Most people would say send the 200,000 people so we can get this done,
Mm.
right?
But that's a
So,
common strategy of war.
right. So, what's different of sitting here and saying, if we get 20% of the population vaccinated, and let's wait 2, 3 years to figure out whether or not this is good for the rest of us, or sit there and say, let's just get everyone vaccinated.
Mm.
If you do end up getting sick and unfortunately dying from it, because it's a gamble, it's the same gamble that you were doing before, with COVID. Because if you got it, in most cases, COVID ended up being a death sentence, right? And I'm not too sure where Angie disappeared to. Yeah,
No, I'm right here. I'm just trying to pull a message. Hold on one second.
Okay. So I know it's crude for that thought process, and to sit here and say, you know what, that's a very dark way of thinking about it. But at the end of the day, right, we still have to recognize that on a global standpoint, 4.55 million people have died from COVID the last 2 years. Now, it's not the biggest death number that we have, right? Because there's a lot of other things, a lot of other diseases, that's coming. Like the global death rate over the last like 50, 70 years has been like an average of, let's say, whoa, wow. Anyways,
Scares you when you look
um,
at it. Eh?
no, in the 1950s, the average death rate was 20 for every 1,000 people,
Yeah.
right? So
We
medical
had a lot
science
less
knows,
shit taken. We had a lot less shit taking care of stuff like we do now. So yeah, you can die. You
well,
could probably
yeah.
die from a
So
broken arm back then.
right. So we went from almost 20 to 7. In 50 years, we've gone from 20 to 7.65% for every 1,000 people, right?
Mm.
So, that's uncanny. That's medical
No,
science.
no,
That's
I'm
food.
not deviating against all of the medical science and all the other stuff. Like I said, I'm one of those people, and I understand where you sit because you're one of those people who was forced into taking the vaccination, and now you're still sitting here watching everybody act a fool. So I'm totally understanding where your frustration comes from, and I know you see where my frustration comes from. So we're kind of simpatico on it. Like it's an eventuality. Like that's the whole thing. Like it's an eventuality, and people have to come to that understanding and that norm. But my problem where I have with this is that now you have people saying you can't go to work, even though you've been going to work, even though you haven't been getting COVID, you've been getting tested and doing everything else that is supposed to be done, a la all medical doctors.
Well, okay.
A lot
So,
like,
yeah.
did you not see the legislation that just got passed that not only if these people they got fired, then now they passed legislation that says even if they get the vaccine, they can't get their jobs back because they're trying to send a message. New
Well,
York just
yeah.
passed that. Yeah, like that's a
So,
problem.
so it's
So
it's
you're telling
going
me
back.
even sorry, like I'm
It,
just saying, they're gonna say even if I go back and get the vaccine later, I can't get my job back. That's crazy to me. That's insane.
well, okay. So you're looking at it from, again, the personal aspect, and I definitely get the extremity of the situation. Yeah, that's a little extreme, but
A little,
how else? Okay, how else do you incentivize people to get the vaccine?
but that's the whole point. You're trying to incentivize it. It's a choice. Like
But
the
if
people
okay,
rule. Majority and people who if let's just say they did a counter poll right now, and let's just
mhm.
say I'm not saying like it's ever going to happen, but let's say an imaginary world where we can actually get a worldwide poll of everything, and let's just say 85% of people saying I don't want the vaccine. That's 85% of the world and the people saying the complete opposite end of it. Like that's a problem. You're going against what and the government is ruled by who? The people. So that's a problem. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not just a moral implication. Like, this is an issue of a violation of civil rights. When it comes down to it, like I said, if there's a, like, let's say they give this stuff to you, and then 5-6 years ago, you hear that long ass, did you get COVID-19? And you hear that long-winded commercial and later on. Are they going to be able to actually afford the payouts that's going to happen if something does strange happen? Because that's going to be huge. That's the only reason why I say this.
Everybody's looking at the monetary aspect and being like, yeah, if you get the COVID vaccine. So again, the solution is to wait and allow this to figure itself out. We don't have that luxury anymore. We've been doing it for 2 years.
No, but we haven't been waiting. We've been literally playing like we've been doing a good job. The only reason why, at least, look at places like Taipei, look at places like I understand they're more communist countries, but they eradicated it with no vaccine. They did what they were supposed to do. They literally isolated themselves, kept everybody out, and literally numbers dropped. They don't have any more numbers now there, and they don't need vaccines. So explain to me why they can operate that way and we can't, because of choice.
Sorry,
we've already.
Sorry, you said a communist country.
No, that's what I said. I understand the implication of what I'm saying to you is that there's, well, I don't know if Taipei is like fully communist. I would have to do research on that, but I think they're more on the, you know, more of like a cultural, or like I think they have a democracy, but I don't know how it's like implicated and how it's run. But they managed to get rid of it in a lot of places like that. Smaller areas, yes, they are smaller. But the tried and true method is to literally isolate yourself, lock it out. We never did that. We played at lockdown, and people were all over the place, including our politicians flying all over the place and creating bad examples. That's the problem. It's literally the same people who are governing us were lying to us when they were going on vacation, and they got caught. So you expect the people they're governing to listen to you when you're out there on vacation as well?
Right.
That's
so
the problem.
At the end,
that's the damn problem.
Okay. So yes, that is reflective of irresponsibility, but it's also reflective of the nature of the country, right? Because you're sitting here and saying that our government officials acted a certain way. They're reflective of the people in which they serve, right? So if we were being more restrictive, right?
Right from then, the not now. We can't play like that.
Then we can sit here and say, oh, it's okay. But everyone who sat there and said, oh, Trudeau, this official, that official, Doug Ford, this, that, was fucking around, they're sitting here and saying, well, why should I listen to them? I'm going to fuck around the same way. If they're going to go to the cottage, I'm going to go to the cottage. Okay, so 2 wrongs make a right. As a result of which...
2 wrongs make 2 stupid. But continue.
Right. So as a result of which, we can't even put full accountability on them. Yes, they're supposed to set a precedence, but if we knew the overarching threat, then we would have behaved the same. We would have pervaded in counter. So when it's time for us to revolt and say that our rights are being infringed because they're setting a precedence, we can organize, we can rally. But when it was time for us to say, no, we're going to hold you accountable, we didn't go after them. We didn't rally in the same capacity. We didn't go to their houses. We didn't sit there. And all these.
That's what I'm saying is like the same idiots that are out there creating the same individual problem. Like they're in a person's business when they should be at a politician's house or their place.
Right.
So I'm with you 100% on that.
Right. And if they were sitting there and saying, hey, we're going to make everyone accountable. So again, where were you to go after the politicians and say, you should shut down the country, you should do these things? But now you're going after a small business and saying, oh, you're refusing my service because you want to protect the probability of you being able to continue operating. You don't want to be that small mom and pop shop that because you let one person who's not wearing a mask come in and then all of a sudden contract tracing reviews. Exactly. Because
no, I am with you. This does not make sense. Like like I said, it's 2 group of idiots screwing it up for everybody else. And it's including the people who are in charge. Like
honestly,
they're idiots too, and that's the problem. I think it's
honestly,
just ruling.
I'm gonna put it simply because we can go back and forth on this all the time. All right, that's cool. Am I happy with companies coming and cracking down on people and saying get the vaccine? No, I agree that is a very aggressive state to the point where it's violating certain rights. But at the same token, any agreement that you have with a company is sitting here and saying, they have the right to protect the interests of their organization as well as the people who work there, right? You are an asset to the company. You are a piece of property until you no longer work for any company that you work for, regardless of where you've been there for 1 minute or 100 years. You are still a number, right?
Right.
Yes, there's some companies that respect who you are and know you by first name, but at the end of the day, if something happened to you, they would have to replace you either by chance or choice.
Instantly.
Get it out of your head, right? The loyalty is only a social component of a relationship with a company. If you work for ABC Corp, yeah, you might have a good relationship with your boss, but at the end of the day, ABC Corp is there until it's not there anymore. And their main objective is to
Or
make
they
money.
rename.
Right. So with that being said, all these people saying, hey, my rights are being violated, you are violating that right by not being someone who is safe to enter the workforce and interact with other people. You not getting the vaccine, and I'm talking generally speaking, and again, people can at me for it, but it's a matter of opinion. You walking into your workplace without a vaccination is almost like you having a concealed weapon. Whether or not you are going to be a threat with that weapon, there's a potential where that weapon could be a threat to somebody else. That is equivalent to you bringing into the virus, regardless of whether or not your immune system can handle it. It might be subjectable to someone else, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
that's
I agree
why
with you.
that's why these companies are making aggressive stance to say, hey, from a social component, we want to show that we're responsible. And from a legal component, you don't want to be that thing of saying, okay, I let Charlie come into the building and next thing you know, there's another outbreak, right? Because you've exercised your due diligence. But the companies want people to come back in. They don't want all these people saying, oh, it's unsafe for me to come into work because I'm afraid that I'm going to get sick. I cannot perform in that environment at risk of me and my family's safety. So they rather address and put everyone on the same plane. We can't have a situation saying we're going to rely on the competency of, let's say Andrew's okay, and you can say you went through all that regimen. Charlie's not the same
Still
thing.
doing it.
Everyone's situation is different. Fair. So that's why across the board they're saying, you know what, we have to create a standard, and the best standard we have is vaccination. Now, with all these companies aggressively doing it, yes, because they want to encourage a certain degree of normalcy. Because if they don't stand, if ABC company doesn't stand with XYZ, right? The supply chain between the two companies get impacted. If ABC wants to do business and XYZ is not at the par, then we're waiting 2, 3, 4, 5 months for supply because XYZ wants to be more liberal. You are going to tell ABC's customers that, hey, I can't get your t-shirt, your Tickle Me Elmo, your PlayStation
Whatever it is.
5,
Yeah.
your Ford X150 because the supply chain are being compromised. Look, Ford right now, they have a bunch of trucks sitting in their parking lot. They're going around wherever they can to wrecking yards, depots, all that sort of stuff, saying, hey, you have one of our old trucks, we'll buy it off
We'll
you
buy it from
so
you.
we can
Yep.
take the chips out of these old trucks and put it into your 50, 60, $100,000 truck. So all these people sitting here and acting like the world's moving forward, you're getting used parts in your new vehicle. And as soon as you walk away with that car, they're already putting a recall notice on your car. So when the chips from China that they can't get
Because they
because
need
it's
them.
on
Yeah, they need the
lockdown,
toll time. Yep.
or it's sitting in a freight in one of those big boats that's probably caught in the Atlantic Strait or wherever, to get over here, it's not ready. And people aren't being mindful. This holiday season, when you're trying to buy all the gifts for your family, watch how
It's gonna cost a
expensive
hell of
they're
a lot
going to
more
be
money. Yep. It's gonna cost
or
a
how
hell of a lot more money.
limited the stock is.
The
My
supply.
my
Yeah,
parents
that's gonna be
my
the problem.
my parents bought a new furniture set 2 months ago.
Still haven't
We
gotten
haven't
there.
seen it. It's still in Italy.
No, I understand. Trust me, the supply chain is destroyed because, like, all right, I only use this example for, like I said, for me and my company. We are, let's say, 400 to 600 employees. I'm just quoting liberally, but I think we are because we run 3 different shifts. Places open 24 hours a day. Everybody was required to have a vaccination, or they were required to get tested. So you couldn't come into place regardless if you're showing symptoms. You have to have a general testing mandate. So we've maintained that testing mandate up to this point. Now it's a point where they're gonna have to, based on government information, because my company runs by government standards. So the second the government said that you have to be vaccinated, 2/3 of the workers weren't allowed to be at work. They would have to make special accommodations for those people and to wait for them. But literally overnight, it became illegal to have those people at work. And that was a problem when we were already operating this entire time, not one outbreak of COVID in the building, not one. This entire time we've been operating because every one of our workers has been literally sticking to protocol.
Right. They're sticking to protocol, but to a certain extent, your 600 workers have the potential of being impacted by more people now because of the fact that more people are interacting, numbers are going down, numbers are going down, but people are being like the stay
more
at
liberal.
home.
No, I understand what you're trying to say. Yeah.
Right. So their ability to operate, your ability to operate in a certain degree of isolation and immunity is being reduced because just the nature of volume that's being flooded back into the system. So you went to Walmart today. There's no line protocols, there's no waiting in lines, there's no restricted people, there's no, where are the arrows in the aisle?
No, I actually didn't go to Walmart because there were so many people. I literally skipped it and went to No Frills. But I see what you're saying. I looked for a store with less people, but that's just me. I'm not the average person who's running around out there.
So
you're gonna get what you're saying.
So you're gonna get to the point where that won't be an option for you anymore. Because the rest of the world is starting to interact with each other. Right now, we're sitting at, according to the statistic tracker of almighty Google, because whatever. If it's wrong, then we can blame
Yeah,
them.
we can always redo that later. Yeah.
So according to the New York Times, the global population of being vaccinated is currently sitting at 46.8%. So almost half the world is vaccinated in some capacity, right? Canada is sitting right now, 78% has one dose, 72% has two doses. America, 65% one dose, 56% two doses. So you're telling me, when do you think the floodgates are going to open in regards to social restrictions? If we're reaching those numbers, there's going to be a point where things are going to open, even just the regular
80%. I think about 80%. When it gets to like 75 to 80%, they're going to just flood the markets and say,
yeah. Theresa Tam says we need to reach a little bit higher. So I would say at approximately 83%, because that's the magic number for herd immunity. 83%.
Yeah, well, that's when your overall like inability to actually have the virus spread among countering people, or else it won't be as bad. But the problem is that here's counter thought though. Because you have a group of people, like we said, who are literally, I think it's a high group of people who are acting stupid with the vaccine and still thinking it's okay. They're like the number one spreader, bro. Like, look how bad it is. Like, look how bad it is on that. Like, they're literally roaming the place thinking everything is blessed now.
Fair. But in the context of being like, fine, the numbers aren't going down, and that's what people are a little blind to, how many people are being hospitalized? How many people are dying because of COVID infections? That's going down. And that's a metric of positivity. Don't worry about the numbers, because it's based off the fact that as more people interact, there's more chances of contracting the disease. As a result,
I understand.
The numbers are.
I understand the science behind it, but here's one, and I only counter argue with this one fact because somebody brought it to my attention who's a science major who's actually really kind of been studying this in the background. And he's a friend of mine, and he's like, yo, there's two schools of thought of it. And he says, here's the problem with the numbers. They're skewed. And I'm going, what do you mean? He's like, these are global, like I said to him, I'm like, this is a global authority. Like, they literally have to double check themselves. He's like, yes, but here's the problem. He's like, autopsies of people who died who they think have COVID may not even have COVID. He's like, because they can't do autopsies on those bodies. So 2/3 of the people that we actually think died of COVID may not even have the damn virus.
Okay, so at the end of the day,
so a lot of the numbers are completely screwed. So I understand that.
Whether or not it's smoke and mirrors, listen, people, whether or not it's smoke and mirrors, at the end of the day, COVID has shut down the world for almost 2 years. Right. The bottom line is it needs to go away. So whether or not it's done by design or by actuality, the bottom line is you have to create a story. And I'm going to use this term story, an agenda, an objective to say, bottom line is we need this to go away. Hell or high water, it needs to go away. And people are okay with propaganda when it's in their best interest.
Facts.
Right? So to be surprised and sit here and say, "Oh, there's a conspiracy." There's always a conspiracy. There's a Russian conspiracy. There's a space conspiracy. Did we ever make it to the moon? You know, is
Yep, there's always that
if Jeff
argument.
like did Jeff Bezos really shoot his penis rocket to the upper atmosphere? Not everyone has the ability to validate all the information. Again, there's 7.8 million people on the planet. It's growing all the time. Everything can be skewed. Global warming, not global warming, this, that,
Hmm.
great, and the third. So at the end of the day, this is something that's affecting all of us. If you want to stop being in a situation where COVID is a conversation, where we have to wear masks almost where we need to go, except for the anti-maskers, to the point where you have to get triple vaccinated or have to do all this restrictions, jumping through hurdles in order to travel, then you
Hmm.
have to pick a side. And at the end of the day, sitting there and being like, oh, I'm not kicking up a fuss, all you're doing is slowing down the inevitable, right? Because until this completely goes away, either by everyone getting vaxxed and mitigating the chances of it spreading, or we just wait until COVID gets
Yeah.
bored and
Well,
fucks
basically,
off
it's
to
one of two
Mars.
school thoughts. You're right. It's one of two school thoughts. You're gonna have the people who are you're gonna have to reach a point where at least 85% of the population is vaccinated, so the numbers start dropping in ridiculous amounts. And then you're gonna have to have those people who didn't get the vaccine stay in their damn house until that happens. That's
And
the
you know
only way
that's
for it to happen, and it's not
and you
gonna
know
happen.
that's not going to be a case. It's not going to be a
No,
case
no,
because people don't
I
have
see your
that
point.
discipline.
No,
People don't
I
have
see
that
your point.
discipline. If we did,
I
we
have
wouldn't have the
hey,
numbers.
stop saying that. Stop saying that because I have had the discipline. Damn it, I have had the discipline.
But even your discipline is going to get weary. And it's unfortunate that someone like you has to wait until everybody else gets on board. And you're sitting here at your window. You're just like
Bro,
the
it's
movies, like,
terrible.
hello, I
I've
want to
been
go
lit in a
outside. I
bubble,
want to do
bro. In a
something.
bubble. Because my poor son, like, it's to a point where it's like we were scared to send him to school. We were like, there was this whole thing, bro. It was like a lot for us because, like, my wife has had this whole anxiety about it because she has asthma, and then there's a whole bunch of other underlying conditions. So she does not want to go anywhere anyway. Once she heard about COVID, it's been lockdown protocols in my house since day one. So it's a
Yeah.
problem, and that's an issue where it's like a lot of people didn't just that. Like at least here's the thing: at least if they adjust stuff to normal regulations, then you could turn around and say, "Yo, we stuck and did what you asked, and it didn't work." Then you could have that discussion and argument, or you could walk around in the streets and protest all you want. That would make sense, but you didn't. It's a lot of both sides playing each other and just basically escalating the thing to the point where everybody's going to suffer. And that's where I see the problem because I'm sitting here having to suffer for both sides being dumbasses.
Yeah. And that's the
With
thing.
it.
We don't have the luxury to wait out the clock, right? It's just like sports. Like if you're playing a game, it's just like let's say you're playing basketball. Yeah,
Mm.
what would you want to do? Have a defense and not score any more points and just prevent the other team from scoring points, or try and score as many points as you can before the clock runs out, right? Like at the end of the day, we don't know when the clock's going to run out. Everyone thinks that COVID's going to end like New Year's Eve 2022. So you can just sit
Like they
here
have a
and
damn
be like,
deadline on it.
right. So you can just sit here and wait out the clock. No, it ends when there's no more cases. And if you're sitting here
Mhm.
and saying, if
No,
your
but I don't think
argument is
that's never
saying,
going to not happen, though. I don't think that's never going to not happen. I think there's still going to be COVID cases happening. It's just going to be very less and less dramatic. It's going to be like the fucking flu, bro. Like it's going to be here forever.
right,
I don't think COVID's
right. So it's just like, you know what? Everybody's worried about, if we're gonna have those commercials in 50 years being like, it's just like,
No, I think we might have them silent ass commercials in more than like 2-3 years because of how fast we rushed it. Like, all right, perfect example, bro. I'll give you an example of why my natural fear. Everybody at the beginning thought learning disability was an issue with children all throughout school when I first was growing up. So if you had the slightest case of ADHD, the first thing they recommended to you was Ritalin. I got 2 doses of Ritalin, dog, and became an insomnia. 2 doses. It changed my physiology so much within those 2 doses. I have never been able since the age of 13 years old to get a day of sleep, a proper day of 8 hours of sleep. So what is a guy like me to do, bro? I can
I mean,
literally trace that back to the very day it happened, dog. I remembered it sitting. Dog, I was like a zombie. I sat up there for 19 hours straight reading. My mom literally didn't realize that I hadn't gone to bed yet.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, everything comes with some degree of side effects, and like I'm not downplaying anybody. You know, like if anybody gets side effects after getting the vaccine, I totally understand. I appreciate you and your commitment to trying to get us to where we'd like to be. For all those people who are sitting here and saying, I don't want to take the vaccine, again, I definitely understand that it's a tough decision. And, you know, you're worried about the ramifications because we don't have a straight answer. You know, idealistically, you know, it is a very hard choice. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, it's becoming one of those scenarios where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And the needs of the many is simply saying we need a way to say that we're all good to interact with each other. And unfortunately, the best answer we have is the vaccine. If another opportunity presents itself, logically everyone would go towards that. If it was like choose a vaccine or
Or
choose
choose
this,
the option.
everyone
Yeah,
would
yeah.
choose this. And then if it was an
Yeah.
option to say, hey, you know what, do the vaccine or choose this, you're 100% immune, but you
Mm.
lose 5 years out of your life expectancy, then that's a choice. I get it.
Yeah.
Right. But as it stands right now, like we're asking scientists to do more work, to sit here and say, we understand that the vaccine's not good enough for everyone to say, I can do 100% confident. So go figure out something else. Okay. They're like, sure. But do you want to spend that much time? And while we can, everything else is just being held up. Like, think about it. There's only maybe, like, I wish I knew how many scientists were working on this
Mm.
project. There's,
Probably like
there's
it's not that many people comparable to actually be able to probably do this. There's not many geneticists that are probably actually have like the experience or the genetic know or even the research facilities to do this kind of shit. So like, I mean, we can go through the whole numbers and all of this stuff because like, I mean, we got to wrap this up anyway. So
yeah.
I mean, we can always
So
make this a part 2 and go around.
So yeah,
Wait, okay?
just another quick Google. According to the world, Science is Business, according to it in June 14, 2021. So it's pretty accurate. There's only 8.8 million scientists.
Damn, that's a
And that's
lot
and
less
that's
people than I thought it was. I thought it was a
and
lot more than that.
and that's scientists period and
That's
globally.
just
So
science.
if
We're not
you're
talking about like geneticists. We're just talking about like science as a whole.
right.
That's a
So
problem.
yes, the number is growing, right? But when you're 8.8 million versus 7.8 billion people on the
Billion?
planet,
Yeah, that's a
bro,
serious problem, bro.
bro,
That's
that's
a
a lot.
serious problem.
That's a lot of
That's like
pressure.
going to war. That's like going to war with with like 10,000 men and only having one medic. Like a group of people gonna die, bro.
Actually, that's a perfect analogy. That's a perfect analogy.
That's what that is, bro. That's like literally going to a war with 10,000 men and having one medic. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So
and on that note,
unfortunately, yeah, you know what? We can only go as quickly as they can figure this out. So unfortunately, it's either we wait for them to figure it out 100%, or you know, we take a chance. And everyone takes a chance all the time. Every time you start your car, you take a chance. Every time you wake up in the morning, you take a chance. Every time you decide to turn left or turn right, you take a chance. So like, bro, it's one of these things where it's just like, you know what? Let's just take the chance that we feel that we can, and at least try to move forward. And like, at least we can buy them more time, because these scientists, they're trying to figure this out and trying to mitigate the amount of people that die at the same time. I bet you there's scientists sitting there and saying, if I could just figure out this genome today, those
a million more people will live.
Those hundreds of people didn't have to die. The ones that are assigned to COVID right now. So that's a lot of pressure.
But it is. It's incredibly amount of pressure. I mean, in the great words of Anderson Paak, yes, loud. I hope we found a way. And, you know, till the next time, ladies and gentlemen, please like, subscribe, and tell us what you think. Are they going too far? Are you more willing to take the vaccine? Is this thing kind of blowing itself out of proportion? Or are we just all being idiots and babies and can we just take the shot and keep it moving? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time.
Have a good night.